Hi everyone and welcome to Osama Rat Care. So this video is going to be a continuation of my Make Do series, and it's going to think about supplements. So as I've literally just filmed the dry mix one, but it's kind of like realising when doing that how important the supplement side of things is. Because if you're kind of making sure you're ticking the box on most of the major vitamins, you can afford to be a little bit more relaxed about what you feed in terms of dry food. Quite often it's the micronutrients that are the problem rather than the macronutrients. You can see that when there's a problem with that, as long as you're not massively underfeeding them or massively overfeeding them, you've got a bit more room. But when you're talking about vitamins, they're often invisible and it's quite difficult to kind of tick all the boxes. So the main things that are typically low in a diet, which is the kind of thing we should be feeding rats, which is high carbs, moderate protein, lowish fat, are vitamin D, calcium and copper. You can also sometimes have a problem with vitamin K as well, that's worth bearing in mind. Most of the rest of the vitamins and minerals are fairly well covered by stuff as long as we feed them a roughly balanced diet. Those things are quite low naturally in grains and such, so are a little bit harder for them to get hold of. So what I would normally do, and what I'd recommend if you've got chance, and rat rations are still going for those of you in the UK, is make sure you get a good general kind of supplement and get plenty of it in so you've got it in. So for me, my normal is having Daily Essentials 1 from the Dr. Squiggles range, and Calcium also from the Dr. Squiggles range in, and I use that in kind of like water as and when, with what I'm feeding at the moment, about twice a week. For the babies, they're getting it like 5 or 6 days a week. They love the stuff. If I was feeding just a straight spaced diet, I'd probably be moving up to like five days a week for the adults, and basically most of the time for the babies, apart from maybe a day off a week, just to process things. The other things you can get from rat rations, which is very handy, is the Daily Rat 3. I use that regularly in wet food. It's not dissolvable. The other two go in water fine. I should say I get Calcium liquid. The powder doesn't go in water fine, and that's a bit of a pain. Hey Fink, how are you? For those of you that followed Fing's post-op kind of video, she's healing very well. She did get a very small seroma there, but that's all gone. That's like a kind of swelling, general swelling after an operation. It's quite common in older rats because they're a bit baggier skin, but yes, she's doing well. Right, so alternatives to supplements, and I'm going to talk about each of the kind of options, or each of the vitamins separately to kind of give you a feel for it. So vitamin D, this is the one that I've had the most stress with in my life. We discovered that vitamin D was typically deficient in grain diets after feeding a grain diet for some time, and when I say we, there were several of us that went through this. It was quite stressful, and a vitamin D deficiency is not something you want in your rats. We were having rats with broken teeth quite easily, just out of condition, showing signs of calcium deficiency actually, because vitamin D is so important in calcium processing, and it was quite stressful times. And then those rats did end up getting hind leg degeneration earlier, which is part of it, but that's beside the point. We don't want to have a vitamin D deficiency. So good sources of vitamin D, a simple way to do it would be to pick up some calcium and vitamin D vitamin tablets for humans. These are kind of quite straightforward. Most health food shops do them, some supermarkets may even do them. As a rough kind of like rule of thumb, I would say one of those vitamin D tablets crushed up and kind of sprinkled over some wet food would probably do a couple of rats like a week, because you've got to bear in mind they're getting something from their food anyway, so that's kind of like gives them a nice buffer on top of that. That's kind of like a good way of doing things. So from that, that covers your vitamin D. But if you get a vitamin D and calcium one together, that's really handy because it also covers you from calcium. Now another option for vitamin D is if you can see a cod liver oil that has vitamin A taken out of it. So in the UK, I think there's a 7C's one that literally on the back, it purposefully doesn't list vitamin A as an ingredient. I don't know how it works in other countries, but that is very handy. You can also get vitamin D drops. General rule of thumb, around about a 20th of a human dose is a rat dose overall, But I find for vitamin D, I prefer to operate a little bit higher, so I'll go for about 1/10 of a human dose, and that gives you an idea. And you don't have to give it every day, just say over the course of a week, make sure they get enough. Calcium, a lot easier. There's plenty of calcium supplements out there, sold for reptiles, sold for humans, and so on. If you can combine it with the vitamin D, it's easier. You can also get cuttlefish bones. If they chew those are quite good. Some of calcium perches, pumice stone, all of them are quite good sources of calcium that the rats will pick at as they want to. You could also give bones, they're a great source of calcium, and also other vitamins and minerals, so that one's one that I use regularly. So that's a good tick in the box for calcium. Copper, you can get supplement tablets, but there is a little bit kind of like more difficult on that one. It's something that you can overdose, so I'm a little bit more cautious about it. A good thing to do is to feed something like cooked liver that's very high in copper about once a week. Don't give them loads, a little piece per rat will be plenty, or make some of the liver biscuits in my recipe. I think I did a video on it a while ago. It was messy, but yes, so that's quite a good way of doing it as well. Technically dried mushrooms are a great source of it, but they have to eat quite a lot because they're really light. Some people say chickpeas, they're not actually that high in it, but it's generally liver's one of the best sources of copper. But also dark green leafy veg, so as long as you're feeding plenty of that, it should be okay. Longer term, I would want to give liver occasionally though, which is a pain if you're vegetarian and really don't, because liver stinks, or vegan. But you can look at kind of like some kind of liver paste for dogs or something like that. Or if you really do want, you can crush up a human tablet and assume that 1/20th rule, a kind of rough rule of thumb. It should help. You'll generally notice if there's kind of a copper issue with your rats, because the dark rats will get kind of like transparent rings around their eyes. It's not kind of balding, it's literally just the fur around their eyes gets transparent, so the fur is still there. And they'll also get very rusty, though to be fair, some rats get rusty anyway. I should show you my poor Eclipse, because he's fairly brown right now. But yes, so that's where we are with him. And kind of copper. So vitamin K, again, if you're feeding plenty of vegetables, that works quite well. Oh, other idea for calcium actually, while I'm thinking about it, eggshells. Eat the eggs, crush up the shells, they don't even need cooking, cleaning, anything. Throw in the rat cage, they will chew them over time, and that goes down quite well with them actually. But that gives you some ideas on how you can make do with supplements. Not perfect, takes a little bit more work than normal, but it'll actually give you peace of mind. And if you're trying to make sure you're keeping them topped up on a weekly basis, then even if your diet's not perfect, then it's really helpful. So that's probably it from me on supplements. So hopefully that's been useful, and hopefully it gives you a little bit of peace of mind. Bye for now.